Hi everyone. I've been playing with some booby patterns and blobs lately. Boobies are certainly a pattern that has been an extremely productive pattern in competition since the mid-80s. It's only just starting now to become known in North America amongst mainstream anglers. And there's many different ways of preparing booby eyes that help float the pattern. And normally one of the things is done, you would take a section of booby foam and cut it in half. This is a 6 mil. You would cut it in half and then trim it with a singular cut around the outside edge to develop the eye, and you would end up with something similar to that. But playing with this, and this works, in North America we've been exposed to kind of an hourglass shaped foam eye that's made out of a closed cell foam as opposed to an open cell foam, so they have a tendency to sink rather quickly. Having played with it, it works. It swims for about half an hour, floats well, and then has a tendency to sink. And the hourglass shape is something in North America we've become really accustomed to in developing. The original booby eyes were packed pieces of mesh with foam pieces and then tied into as a bag on top of the hook and then divided. Then the cutting of the foam, as I just showed you, came into play. But I developed a little system to take either a standard piece of foam. This is a 6 mil. And like I mentioned, they come in 9 mil, these 6 mil sizes, and also a 2.6 mil size. And so depending on the size of pattern you work with, I generally tie boobies and blobs from a size 8 on a 333 standard wire to a size 12 or even 14 on this hook size. But the other hook I like to use is the 254 in a size 8 to 14 because it's a 2x strong. The reason I like 2x strong is when fish have a tendency to take this pattern, they often hit them extremely hard. So and it catches very sizable fish. So I like the 2x size hook gauge for this pattern. But to go back to preparing a booby, as I mentioned, we were cutting them in the past, splitting them, and what I've done now is something a little bit different, somewhat unique. It's easier in many ways because you can get some pretty well proportioned eyes. I can build them into different profiles somewhat and give them either an egg shape or even a more rounded shape. So what I do is I'll take a 6 mil booby tube, and I'll fold this in half. As you can see, the ends are meeting. And I will lay this in beside the hook shank and pinch it in place and then tie it in with tight turns. Not so tight that we cut the foam, because the foam can be easily cut when you're using, not most threads, but certainly with nano silk. It will cut the foam if desired or not desired, depends on your ability to control tension. So as you can see, I've taken the 2.6 mil, tied it in so it's kind of a rounded shape, and what I'll do here now is lift the eye up. I'll just secure my vise and find center. I'll bring my thread straight up beside the hook shank, and when I wrap my first wrap, it'll come down straight down the hook shank from a vertical position right beside the hook, and I'll pull down to create those booby eyes. And there, so once it's kind of evenly split, I can work around it, do a figure 8, and keep the thread tight to the hook shank. So this, depending on how much buoyancy I want in the pattern, I can use a full 6 mil tube. And I'll go around, secure it in the back, and I'll come up underneath and pull those thread wraps tightly together, and this will hold those booby eyes well into position. And then I'll secure the pattern off behind the eyes. And often I preload my eyes on the patterns. I'll do a dozen or so. But you can see by horseshoeing it in this fashion, we still get sort of the hourglass shape that we're kind of accustomed to in North America. And it's well proportioned, well set, and very, very easy to tie in. You don't have to do a lot of pre-cutting. So I'll do another one here for you with the same idea. But if I didn't want as much buoyancy, what I do on other patterns is, again, take a 2.6 mil tube. So I'll just lay down a thread base here. And come back in behind the eye, and I'll take a tube itself, 6 mil tube, and I will cut it lengthwise. So when you buy these tubes, you know, some of the packages like what we have with Zemperfly, there's 20 in an individual package, and normally you would make 40 boobies out of that package. But if you do a full tube, you'll only make 20. So if you split it in half like I had done here, and then again run the same procedure now, bring the tube in beside the hook shank, and we'll just tighten that in, tie it all down, good tight turns without cutting the foam. Make sure it's centered. Lift the tube again, as I'm doing. Bring the thread up straight to vertical, down the center of the tube. Find center here. A little off. So a little off. And there we've got a pretty good matched set of eyes by splitting that foam. And I'll figure 8 at this point. Pulling it snug but not too tight to cut the foam. Come up underneath the eyes and just wrap around those figure 8s. And then just finish off behind the fly. So again, we have these eyes set in a position as such. So it's a very easy way to get that hourglass figure, that nice rounded edge, without doing any cutting. And if I was to finish off this pattern, there's many different ways of tying boobies. I have a tendency to often just run a wing behind the eyes, maybe a little bit of dubbing and if thread is showing, but I'll run the wing about body length, just slightly longer, or just slightly longer than hook shank length. And then I'll remove the upper part of the back side of the wing. And again, just secure that down. And what I'll do with the material that I cut off, I'll just use that as a loose dubbing. And we'll finish that off behind the eyes. And then come up in front of the hook from underneath and just do a couple of 3-knot whip finishes. So this is a very, very simple booby pattern. Swims very well. It's got a lot of buoyancy. It can lift my team of chronomid patterns or other mayfly nymph patterns or 52 Buicks, whatever I'm fishing with. But like I said, if I run, so this is a split one that doesn't have as much buoyancy as if I would run a regular 6mm tube, which would have more buoyancy. So this I would fish often on a cast where I'm throwing, letting it sink, or retrieving it with a split tube, and if I'm elevating with a washing line from the bottom up, then I'll often run a full 6mm tube in the fashion I'd showed you. So I hope you enjoyed this, and thanks for watching. Have yourself a great day.